The autumn sun was setting behind Manhattan's towering skyscrapers when a sleek black Tesla pulled up to the Grand Plaza Hotel. The doorman rushed forward, then hesitated for a split second when he saw who emerged from the car. A woman in her mid-30s stepped out, wearing a perfectly tailored navy blue suit and carrying a designer briefcase. She was Dr. Rose Chen, though most business magazines referred to her as the software queen, the brilliant mind behind Global Tech Solutions, and one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the world. The clicking of her heels echoed through the marble-floored lobby as she approached the front desk. The crystal chandeliers above cast a warm glow across the space, illuminating the rich wooden panels and gold-trimmed decorations that screamed old money and tradition. Several guests lounged in the plush armchairs, some typing away on laptops, others engaged in quiet conversation. "Good evening," Dr. Chen said with a warm smile, placing her platinum credit card on the counter. "I have a reservation for the penthouse suite. I'm here for tomorrow's tech summit." The front desk manager, Peter Wilson, barely glanced at her. His fingers moved lazily across the keyboard as he drawled, "Name? Dr. Rose Chen. The reservation was made 3 weeks ago through my executive assistant." Wilson's expression shifted subtly. A slight tightening around his eyes, a barely noticeable downturn of his mouth. He clicked through several screens, taking far longer than necessary for a simple reservation check. "I'm not seeing anything under that name," he said, his tone dismissive. "Are you sure you have the right hotel?" Dr. Chen maintained her professional composure, though she noticed how Wilson had just cheerfully checked in a white couple moments ago without asking for any verification beyond a credit card. She pulled out her phone and pulled up the confirmation email. "Here's my confirmation number," she said, turning the screen toward him. "You can see it was confirmed by your booking department." Wilson barely glanced at the phone. "That confirmation number isn't showing up in our system. Perhaps there was a glitch." His emphasis on the last word carried an unmistakable sneer. "I suggest trying the Holiday Inn downtown. They might have something more suitable." Around them, the lobby had grown quieter. A few guests were watching the interaction with uncomfortable expressions, while others suddenly became very interested in their phones or newspapers. An elderly couple at the concierge desk whispered to each other, shooting furtive glances in their direction. Dr. Chen took a slow, deep breath. In the reflection of the polished desk surface, she could see another staff member smirking behind Wilson's shoulder. She'd faced moments like this before, in college, in business meetings, even at high-end restaurants. But this time felt different. The blatant disrespect, the thinly veiled prejudice, the casual way they assumed they could dismiss her, it wasn't just about her anymore. "I'd like to speak to your manager," she said calmly. "I am the manager on duty," Wilson replied, his smile not reaching his eyes. "And as I've explained, we have no reservation under your name. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have other guests to attend to." He turned away, clearly considering the matter closed. Dr. Chen stood there for a moment, her mind racing. She could easily call her lawyers, create a social media storm, or leverage her considerable influence to shine a spotlight on this discrimination. But as she watched Wilson greeting the next guests with exaggerated courtesy, a different plan began forming in her mind. She took out her phone again, this time sending a quick text to her financial advisor. "Remember that hotel chain acquisition we discussed? I think I've found our first target." As she walked out of the lobby, head held high, she heard Wilson's smug voice behind her, telling his colleague, "Well, that's handled. Can't have just anyone walking in here claiming reservations. We have standards to maintain." Dr. Chen smiled to herself as she got back into her car. They had no idea who they'd just turned away or what was coming next. Sometimes the best response to discrimination wasn't an immediate reaction, but a carefully planned revolution. Her phone buzzed with a response from her advisor, "Already running the numbers. Ready when you are." The Tesla pulled away from the curb, leaving behind a hotel that was about to learn a very expensive lesson about judging people by their appearance. Dr. Chen's mind was already racing with plans, not for revenge, but for transformation. The Grand Plaza Hotel wouldn't just learn about diversity, it would become a shining example of it. Little did Peter Wilson know that his act of discrimination had just set in motion a chain of events that would completely reshape not just the hotel, but the entire hospitality industry in Manhattan. and Dr. Chen was just getting started. As Dr. Chen's car pulled away from the Grand Plaza Hotel, she couldn't shake the conversation she'd overheard between Wilson and his colleague. Their words echoed in her mind, but instead of letting them hurt her, they fueled her determination. She pressed the intercom button to her driver. "Take the long way back to the office, please. I need to make some calls." The first call was to her assistant, May Wong, who had worked with her for the past 7 years. "May, I need everything you can find on the Grand Plaza Hotel. Focus on customer complaints, especially any involving discrimination. And I mean everything: social media posts, review sites, legal filings, news articles, the works." "On it," May replied, already typing. "I'm guessing the meeting didn't go well." "Let's just say they made a very big mistake today," Dr. Chen said, watching the city lights blur past her window. "Also, get me in touch with that private investigator we used for the Silicon Valley merger. We're going to need some inside information." Over the next few hours, as the evening stretched into night, a disturbing pattern emerged. May's research revealed dozens of similar incidents at the Grand Plaza, carefully buried under legal settlements and non-disclosure agreements. The hotel's pristine 5-star rating on major travel sites told only half the story. "Look at this," May said during their video call, sharing her screen. 3 months ago, a renowned African-American surgeon was denied check-in. 6 months before that, a Middle Eastern diplomat's reservation mysteriously disappeared. Last year, an Indian tech executive was told the presidential suite was unavailable despite having a confirmation, only to see it given to another guest an hour later. Dr. Chen leaned back in her office chair, studying the pattern. "And let me guess, all these cases were quietly settled?" "Exactly," May confirmed. "The hotel's parent company, Royal Hospitality Group, has a special legal fund just for these incidents. They consider it a cost of doing business." The private investigator's report arrived the next morning, revealing even more. The Grand Plaza's discriminatory practices weren't just random acts by prejudiced employees. They were part of an unwritten policy. Certain staff members were rewarded for maintaining the hotel's traditional atmosphere, a euphemism for keeping out guests who didn't fit their preferred profile. Dr. Chen spent the morning in her home office reviewing security camera footage that her team had obtained. The cameras had captured Wilson's conversation with his colleague after she left. "These people need to learn their place," he had said, straightening his tie. "This is the Grand Plaza, not some downtown motel." But what really caught her attention was a detail in the financial reports. Royal Hospitality Group, which owned the Grand Plaza and several other luxury hotels, was quietly struggling. Their occupancy rates were dropping, and their reputation in the industry was beginning to slip. They'd recently hired a consulting firm to explore strategic options, corporate speak for looking for a buyer. Dr. Chen, May called through the intercom. "I found something interesting about the ownership structure. The hotel group is actually owned by a complex web of holding companies. If someone wanted to buy them out, they could do it without anyone knowing who the real buyer was until the deal was done." A smile spread across Dr. Chen's face as she looked out her penthouse window at the Manhattan skyline. She'd built her tech empire by seeing opportunities others missed, by turning problems into solutions. Now she saw a chance to do more than just fight one instance of discrimination. She could change an entire institution from the inside out. She pressed the intercom button. "May, get me a meeting with our investment team. And call Richard from legal. We're going to need a lot of shell companies." As she waited for the meetings to be set up, Dr. Chen pulled up the photo of Wilson's smug face from the hotel's website. "Keep your job for now," she murmured. "You're about to help me demonstrate something important about karma." That afternoon, she gathered her most trusted advisors in her company's conference room. The view of Central Park stretched out below them as she outlined her plan. It wasn't about revenge, it was about transformation. The Grand Plaza wouldn't just change its policies. It would become a model for inclusive luxury hospitality. "We're not just buying a hotel," she told her team. "We're buying an opportunity to show the world that excellence and equality go hand in hand. And we're going to do it so quietly that they won't know what hit them until it's too late." As her team began working on the acquisition strategy, Dr. Chen received one more interesting piece of information. The hotel's annual staff appreciation gala was scheduled for exactly 3 months from now. Perfect timing, she thought, marking the date in her calendar. It would be the ideal moment to reveal the new owner's identity. The pieces were falling into place. While Wilson and his colleagues continued their discriminatory practices, thinking they were untouchable, Dr. Chen's team was quietly building a case, documenting every incident, and preparing for a takeover that would shake the hospitality industry to its core. By the time she left her office that evening, the initial paperwork was already being drawn up. The Grand Plaza's days of discrimination were numbered. They just didn't know it yet. The morning sun streamed through the windows of Dr. Chen's downtown office as she gathered her core team for what would become known as Operation Phoenix. The glass conference table was covered with papers, laptops, and half-empty coffee cups, signs of the long hours they'd already put into this project. "All right, everyone," Dr. Chen said, standing at the head of the table. "We have 3 months to pull this off without anyone catching wind of what we're doing. Let's go through the plan step by step." Her chief financial officer, David Patel, pulled up a complex diagram on the screen. "We've created 7 different shell companies," he explained, pointing to the flowchart. "Each one will purchase a small percentage of Royal Hospitality Group's shares through different banks. To the outside world, it'll look like regular market activity." Dr. Chen nodded, remembering how similar tactics had been used against her when she was building her tech company. Now she was using those same methods for positive change. The irony wasn't lost on her. "What about the current employees?" asked May, who had barely slept in the past week, tracking down every lead they could find. "We've documented 28 cases of discrimination in the past year alone." "That's where I come in," said Luna Rodriguez, the HR specialist Dr. Chen had hired specifically for this project. She pulled out a thick folder. "We've been conducting confidential interviews with former employees. The stories they're telling, it's worse than we thought. They had an unofficial point system for turning away certain guests." The room grew quiet as Luna shared some of the testimonies. One former bellhop had quit after being instructed to accidentally lose the luggage of guests who didn't fit the hotel's image. A housekeeping supervisor had been fired for complaining about racist comments made by management. "The good news," Luna continued, "is that many of these former employees are willing to come back under new management. They loved the hotel, they just hated the discrimination." Dr. Chen walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "We're not just buying a building," she said softly. "We're buying a chance to change lives. Every person who was turned away, every employee who was forced to participate in discrimination, this is for them." The team worked through lunch, fine-tuning their strategy. They created a detailed timeline. Week 1 would focus on quietly acquiring shares. Week 2 would involve gathering more documentation. By week 6, they should have controlling interest in the company. "What about the media?" asked Mai. "Once this gets out, it's going to be huge." Dr. Chen smiled. "That's why timing is everything. The annual staff gala is perfect. All the key players will be there, celebrating their success. It's when they're most vulnerable." As the afternoon wore on, they moved to discussing the transformation plan. Dr. Chen had already hired architects to redesign the lobby, making it more welcoming while maintaining its luxury appeal. They'd replace the dark, imposing wood panels with warm, inviting materials. The new design would showcase art from diverse artists, and the hotel's marketing materials would feature guests of all backgrounds. "Remember," Dr. Chen said, "we're not just planning revenge, we're planning revolution." That evening, as most of the team headed home, Dr. Chen stayed behind with May, reviewing security footage from the hotel. They watched as Wilson, the front desk manager, turned away another guest with a barely concealed smirk. "You know what's interesting?" May said, pausing the video. "He does this so casually, like he's absolutely certain there will never be consequences." "That's about to change," Dr. Chen replied, making a note in her tablet. "Keep tracking every incident. Document everything. When we take over, I want a complete record." As the city lights began to twinkle outside, Dr. Chen's phone buzzed with a message from their legal team. The first batch of share purchases had gone through successfully. Nobody at Royal Hospitality Group had noticed anything unusual, just another day of normal stock market activity. "Perfect," she whispered, sending a quick response. Phase 1 was officially underway. Before leaving the office, Dr. Chen took one last look at the hotel's current logo displayed on her screen, a pretentious design that screamed exclusivity. She'd already commissioned a new one, something that represented welcome and warmth while maintaining the luxury appeal. The old Grand Plaza was living on borrowed time, and only her team knew it. As she rode the elevator down to the parking garage, Dr. Chen thought about all the people who'd been humiliated at that hotel. Soon, very soon, they'd see that sometimes justice comes not with a bang, but with a carefully executed plan and the patience to see it through. Her driver was waiting with the car. "Home, Dr. Chen?" "No," she said, checking her phone. "Take me to the financial district. We have some papers to sign." The pieces were falling into place, one by one. In the back of her mind, she could already picture Wilson's face when he realized who his new boss was. But that satisfaction would be just a bonus. The real victory would be transforming a symbol of discrimination into a beacon of inclusive excellence. The next 3 months felt like a high-stakes chess game, with Dr. Chen carefully moving her pieces across the board. Each morning brought new challenges, and each evening ended with another small victory in their carefully orchestrated plan. "We've reached 20% ownership," David Patel announced during their weekly strategy meeting. The team had gathered in a secure conference room at a law firm downtown, away from curious eyes. The best part? Royal Hospitality Group still thinks they're dealing with 7 different investors. Dr. Chen sipped her green tea, studying the financial charts displayed on the wall screens. "And they haven't noticed the pattern." "No," David grinned. "They're too busy trying to keep their financial troubles secret." Their occupancy rates dropped another 5% last month. The team had discovered that the hotel's discriminatory practices were actually hurting their bottom line. In an age of social media and instant reviews, word was spreading in certain circles to avoid the Grand Plaza. Yet the management remained stubbornly committed to their traditional approach. Meanwhile, Mai had been coordinating with their undercover team. They'd hired several mystery shoppers of different backgrounds to document their experiences at the hotel. The evidence they gathered was damning. "Look at this footage from last week," May said, pulling up a video. A well-dressed businessman was being told the hotel was fully booked, while the booking system clearly showed vacant rooms. 30 minutes later, another guest with a different appearance was given a room immediately. "Keep collecting evidence," Dr. Chen instructed. "We'll need it for the transformation phase." The biggest challenge came halfway through the second month. One of Royal Hospitality Group's board members became suspicious of the increased trading activity. Dr. Chen's team had prepared for this possibility. "Let them investigate," she told her legal team during an emergency meeting. "Each shell company has a perfect paper trail. They'll find exactly what we want them to find: legitimate investment firms looking for undervalued properties." True to her prediction, the board's investigation turned up nothing suspicious. In fact, it worked in their favor. The board interpreted the increased interest in their company as a sign that they were undervalued, making them more eager to sell. One particularly satisfying moment came when Wilson, the discriminatory front desk manager, unknowingly served Dr. Chen's interests. During a hotel inspection by potential investors, actually Dr. Chen's team in disguise, he proudly explained how they maintained their standards through careful guest selection. He basically admitted to discrimination on hidden camera, Luna reported, shaking her head in disbelief. He thinks he's impressing potential buyers with their exclusivity. The team had set up a temporary command center in a rented office space, walls covered with photos, documents, and timeline charts. They tracked every share purchase, every complaint, every instance of discrimination. Nothing escaped their notice. By the end of the second month, they controlled 40% of the company. The remaining shares were proving harder to acquire. The price was rising due to their increased buying activity. But Dr. Chen had anticipated this too. "Time to activate Phase 2, she announced during a late-night strategy session. "Leak the news about their dropping occupancy rates to the financial press." The story hit the business sections the next morning. Luxury hotel group struggles amid changing market. The stock price dipped, allowing them to buy more shares at a better price. As they entered the final month, the pace intensified. Dr. Chen's team worked around the clock, coordinating with lawyers, financial advisors, and renovation planners. They had to time everything perfectly. "We've drafted the new employee handbook," Luna reported, holding up a thick document. "Anti-discrimination policies, diversity training requirements, clear reporting procedures for violations. Everything we wished they had in place before." Dr. Chen's phone buzzed constantly with updates from various team members. Share purchases, evidence gathering, renovation plans, staff interviews, all the pieces were moving simultaneously. She barely slept, running on adrenaline and determination. One evening, as she was reviewing the final acquisition documents, May brought her attention to something interesting. "Look at this," she said, pulling up the hotel's recent financial records. "They're planning to increase their guest screening budget next quarter. They're actually going to spend more money on discrimination." Dr. Chen smiled grimly. "They won't get the chance. What's our current ownership percentage?" "As of this morning, 48%. We need just a little more for controlling interest." The final push came during a rainy Thursday afternoon. Royal Hospitality Group's CEO, unaware of who was really buying the shares, called an emergency board meeting to discuss the company's future. They voted to sell their remaining shares to what they thought were interested investment firms. "It's done," David announced, bursting into Dr. Chen's office with the final numbers. "We own 51%. The Grand Plaza is ours." Dr. Chen stood at her office window, watching the rain fall on the city below. In just 3 days, the annual staff gala would take place. Wilson and his colleagues would finally learn who their new owner was. "Send out the invitations for the gala," she instructed May. "Make sure everyone attends. It's time they learned what real hospitality means." As night fell over Manhattan, Dr. Chen reviewed their journey one last time. They hadn't just bought a hotel, they'd bought an opportunity to right countless wrongs. The real work was about to begin. The Friday evening acquisition was completed with a simple electronic signature, but its impact would be anything but simple. Dr. Chen sat in her office, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold and pink. In just a few hours, everything at the Grand Plaza Hotel would begin to change. "The security team is in position," May reported, tablet in hand. "They're ready to implement the new systems as soon as we give the word." Dr. Chen nodded, checking the time. "And the new cameras?" "Already installed during routine maintenance last week. Nobody suspected a thing. They think it was just a regular upgrade." The transformation had to happen quickly and decisively. Dr. Chen's team had spent weeks planning every detail, right down to the minute. At exactly midnight, when the hotel's computer systems would normally run their daily backup, everything would change. "Let's go through the checklist one more time," Dr. Chen said, standing up from her desk. Her team gathered around, each holding their assigned tasks. Luna from HR spoke first. "New employee contracts are ready. Every staff member will need to sign them on Monday morning. Those who refuse," she paused, looking at her notes, "will receive generous severance packages." "The renovation team is on standby," added David. "They'll start work on Monday at 6 a.m., beginning with the lobby. The new design emphasizes openness and welcome while maintaining the luxury feel." Dr. Chen walked to a large monitor showing live feeds from the hotel's newly installed cameras. On one screen, she could see Wilson at the front desk, still practicing his usual discrimination. Earlier that evening, he turned away a successful business owner, claiming no rooms were available despite the hotel being half empty. "He has no idea this is his last weekend of getting away with that behavior," May commented, watching the footage. At exactly 11:55 p.m., Dr. Chen's team gathered in their command center, a temporary office they'd set up in a building across from the hotel. Dozens of computers hummed as they prepared for the synchronized changeover. 5 minutes, David announced, eyes on his watch. Dr. Chen thought about all the people who'd been humiliated in that lobby, all the qualified employees who'd been passed over for promotions, all the subtle and not-so-subtle ways the hotel had maintained its discriminatory practices. 2 minutes. The night staff at the hotel went about their regular duties, unaware that their workplace was about to undergo a revolutionary change. 1 minute. Mi's fingers hovered over her keyboard, ready to initiate the system changes. Luna held the stack of new employee handbooks, and David prepared to send out the official announcement to all staff emails. 30 seconds. Dr. Chen took a deep breath. This wasn't just about buying a hotel or getting revenge. This was about creating lasting change. 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mai pressed enter. Across the street, the hotel's computer systems began their transformation. The old logo disappeared from screens, replaced by the new design. The discriminatory guest screening protocols vanished from the system. New reservation policies took effect immediately. Phase 1 complete, May announced, watching the progress bars on her screen. All systems successfully updated. But that was just the beginning. As the clock ticked past midnight, more changes rolled out. The hotel's website updated automatically, showcasing a new commitment to inclusive luxury. Security cameras activated their new AI-powered monitoring system designed to detect and report discriminatory behavior. Send the overnight memo, Dr. Chen instructed. David pressed a button, and every hotel employee's email inbox pinged with an important message: notice of management change and new policies. Effective immediately. Through the security feeds, they watched as the night manager opened the email. His eyes widened as he read the new policies. He immediately picked up his phone, probably trying to call Wilson or other managers, but it was too late. The change was already in motion. Renovation team is arriving through the service entrance, Luna reported. They'll work through the weekend to prepare for Monday's reveal. Dr. Chen watched as moving trucks quietly pulled up to the back of the hotel. Teams of workers began unloading new furniture, artwork, and signage. The old stuffy decor would be replaced with pieces that celebrated diversity while maintaining the hotel's luxury status. What about the current guests? May asked. They'll wake up to welcome letters explaining the ownership change, Dr. Chen replied, along with vouchers for free stays to experience our new approach to hospitality. As Saturday morning approached, Dr. Chen's team continued monitoring the transformation. The night staff had already received basic training on the new policies through their updated computer systems. Some looked confused, others relieved, but all understood that things would never be the same. Look who just tried to badge in, Luna said, pointing to a security feed. Wilson had arrived early, probably hearing about the changes from the night staff. His keycard didn't work, a deliberate part of the plan. Right on schedule, Dr. Chen smiled. Is everything ready for Monday morning? May nodded. New security team in place, new policies activated, new branding everywhere. When the doors open on Monday, the old Grand Plaza will be gone. Through the window, they could see the first hints of dawn breaking over the city. The weekend would be full of activity as they prepared for Monday's revelation, but the hardest part was done. The foundation for change was laid. Send out the Monday morning all-staff meeting reminder, Dr. Chen instructed. It's time they met their new owner. Monday morning arrived with a buzz of nervous energy in the Grand Plaza Hotel lobby. Staff members gathered in small groups, whispering about the changes they'd discovered over the weekend. The old dark wood panels had been replaced with warm, welcoming materials. New artwork featuring diverse artists lined the walls. Even the air felt different, lighter somehow, as if the hotel itself was breathing a sigh of relief. Wilson arrived early, his face tight with frustration after a weekend of unanswered calls and locked-out key cards. He'd had to wait in line with other employees to get his temporary access badge from the new security team. The indignity of it clearly showed on his face. This is ridiculous, he muttered to his usual group of supporters. They can't just come in and change everything without warning. I'd worked here for 15 years. The lobby gradually filled with hotel staff, front desk workers, housekeepers, bellhops, kitchen staff, and managers from every department. Many noticed their colleagues seemed different today. People who usually stuck to their own groups were mingling freely, sharing surprised looks at the overnight transformation of their workplace. At exactly 9 a.m., the main doors opened. Dr. Chen walked in, accompanied by her executive team. She wore a simple but elegant blue suit, her posture confident but not intimidating. The lobby fell silent as she approached the center of the room. Wilson's face went through a series of expressions: confusion, recognition, disbelief, and finally, dawning horror. He remembered her clearly from that evening 3 months ago. Some of his colleagues noticed his reaction and began connecting the dots. "Good morning, everyone," Dr. Chen began, her voice warm but authoritative. "I'm Dr. Rose Chen, and as of Friday evening, I am the new owner of the Grand Plaza Hotel. A murmur ran through the crowd. Wilson took an involuntary step backward, bumping into a newly installed welcome desk. "Some of you may remember me from a visit 3 months ago," she continued, her eyes briefly meeting Wilson's. "I was denied a room here, despite having a confirmed reservation. It wasn't the first time something like that had happened at this hotel, but I promise you, it will be the last." She gestured to the renovated lobby around them. "The changes you see are just the beginning. The Grand Plaza has a proud history of luxury service, but it also has a shameful history of discrimination. Today, we begin a new chapter." Luna stepped forward with a stack of papers. "Each of you will receive new employment contracts today. The most important change is our zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. We're also implementing improved benefits, higher wages, and clear paths for advancement based solely on merit." Dr. Chen walked closer to the staff, making eye contact with various employees. "I know some of you have felt uncomfortable with the old policies. Some of you have been forced to turn away guests against your better judgment. Some of you have faced discrimination yourselves within these walls. That ends today." She paused, letting her words sink in. Through the crowd, she could see some employees wiping away tears, while others stood straighter as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. "Those who share our vision for an inclusive luxury hotel are welcome to stay. Those who don't," she glanced at Wilson again, "will receive generous severance packages. The choice is yours." May stepped forward with a tablet, pulling up security footage from the past 3 months. "We've documented every instance of discrimination that occurred in this lobby. Mr. Wilson, would you care to explain your guest screening system to everyone?" Wilson's face had turned pale. He looked around for support, but found none. Even his usual allies were avoiding his gaze. I was just following policy," he stammered. "Exactly," Dr. Chen replied calmly. "That's why we're changing the policy. Actually, Mr. Wilson, I should thank you. Your actions 3 months ago inspired this transformation. You showed me that buying a room wasn't enough. I needed to buy the whole hotel." A few nervous laughs rippled through the crowd, which had begun to relax as they understood the full scope of what was happening. "Starting today," Dr. Chen continued, "the Grand Plaza will set a new standard for luxury hospitality. We will welcome all guests who can afford our rates, regardless of their appearance, background, or ethnicity. We will promote staff based on their performance, not their profiles. We will be known not just for our luxury, but for our humanity." She turned to address the entire staff. "Each of you has a choice to make today. Those who choose to stay will receive extensive training in our new policies. Those who choose to leave, and I expect some of you will be treated with respect and given fair compensation. The choice must be yours." Wilson didn't wait to get more. He turned and walked stiffly toward the exit, followed by a few others. But most of the staff remained, many of them looking more hopeful than they had in years. As Wilson pushed through the revolving door for the last time, Dr. Chen called out, "Oh, and Mr. Wilson." He paused but didn't turn around. "Thank you for maintaining your standards. They helped me recognize exactly what needed to change." The door swung shut behind him. In the lobby, something shifted in the atmosphere. Employees who had kept silent for years began sharing their stories. A housekeeper tearfully thanked Dr. Chen for the changes. A bellhop admitted how much he had hated turning away guests based on their appearance. "This is just the beginning," Dr. Chen announced to her new staff. "Together, we're going to show the world that true luxury isn't about exclusion, it's about excellence. Now, let's get to work. We have guests to welcome." 1 year passed like a whirlwind of change at the Grand Plaza Hotel. The morning sun streamed through the renovated lobby's tall windows, casting warm light on the diverse crowd of guests checking in and out. The transformation wasn't just visible in the decor, it could be felt in every interaction, every smile, every moment of genuine welcome. Dr. Chen stood by the new welcome desk, observing the morning rush. A young front desk manager, promoted from within, was efficiently handling check-ins with warmth and professionalism. Near the elevators, a bellhop chatted easily with guests from various backgrounds, his natural friendliness no longer constrained by discriminatory policies. "The latest numbers are in," May said, approaching with a tablet. "Our occupancy rates are up 45% compared to last year." Revenue has increased by 40%, and our customer satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. Dr. Chen smiled, watching a family being welcomed with genuine warmth, and the staff satisfaction survey. Even better. Employee turnover is down 70%, and we've become one of the most sought-after employers in the hospitality industry. Remember how hard it was to fill positions last year? Now we have a waiting list of applicants. The hotel's transformation had made waves throughout the industry. Business schools were using it as a case study in ethical leadership and profitable inclusion. Tourism magazines had featured their story, and other hotels were scrambling to copy their model. Dr. Chen called out a familiar voice. She turned to see Mr. Thompson, one of their regular guests, crossing the lobby. "I just had to tell you, I just came from a conference where they were talking about the Grand Plaza's transformation. You've started a movement." Indeed they had. In the past year, 3 other luxury hotels had approached them for guidance on implementing similar changes. Dr. Chen's team had developed a consulting program to help other establishments transform their culture while maintaining their luxury status. Luna appeared with more good news. Remember that housekeeping supervisor who was fired for complaining about discrimination? She just accepted our offer to return as the new head of guest services. The morning staff meeting was held in the newly renovated conference room, where the walls displayed photos of staff members who had gone above and beyond in providing inclusive service. Dr. Chen looked around at the faces of her team, some familiar from the old days, many new, all united in their commitment to excellence without exclusion. "Today marks 1 year since our transformation began," she addressed the group. "But I want to share something special with you. Yesterday, I received this email." She projected the message onto the screen. It was from Wilson, their former front desk manager. "Dear Dr. Chen," she read aloud, "I've spent the past year reflecting on my actions at the Grand Plaza. At first, I was angry about losing my position. But watching the hotel's success under your leadership has forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about myself. I was wrong. The changes you've made prove that luxury and inclusivity aren't mutually exclusive. I'm writing not to ask for my job back, but to apologize to you and everyone I hurt through my actions. Your response to discrimination wasn't revenge, it was revolution. Thank you for teaching me this valuable lesson." A thoughtful silence fell over the room. Then one of the newer staff members raised her hand. "Did you respond?" "Yes," Dr. Chen smiled. "I invited him to attend our diversity training program. He starts next week as a trainee at one of our consultant hotels. Everyone deserves a chance to learn and grow." The day continued with its usual bustle of activity. In the restaurant, guests from different corners of the world shared tables and conversations. The spa had expanded its services to cater to diverse beauty needs. Even the gift shop now featured products from local artisans of various backgrounds. Late that afternoon, Dr. Chen met with a group of young hoteliers who had come to learn from their success. As they toured the property, one of them asked, "Wasn't it risky to make such dramatic changes? Weren't you worried about losing your luxury status?" Dr. Chen paused by a window overlooking the city. "The riskiest thing in business isn't change. It's staying the same when the world is evolving. True luxury isn't about excluding people, it's about making everyone feel extraordinary." As evening approached, she walked through the lobby one last time before heading home. A young couple was checking in, coincidentally, to the same suite she had been denied a year ago. The front desk agent treated them with impeccable courtesy, not a hint of prejudice in sight. "You know what the best part is?" May said, joining her by the entrance. "This isn't just about one hotel anymore. We're changing the whole industry's definition of luxury." Dr. Chen watched as more guests arrived, each one greeted with genuine warmth. The old photos in the lobby had been replaced with a digital wall showing messages from satisfied guests, a tapestry of faces and stories that reflected the hotel's new spirit. "The real luxury," Dr. Chen replied, "was always in making people feel valued. We just had to remind the world of that." As she stepped out into the evening air, the hotel's new signature scent, a carefully chosen blend representing different cultural influences, followed her. The Grand Plaza stood tall against the darkening sky, its windows glowing with welcome, a beacon of change in an industry that had needed it for far too long. "See you tomorrow," she said to the doorman, who beamed with genuine pride in his role. we still have work to do. Because that was the truth, that transformation wasn't just a one-time change, but an ongoing journey. Each day brought new opportunities to prove that excellence and inclusion could go hand in hand, that profit and principle could coexist, and that sometimes the best revenge against discrimination was simply to show a better way.